How many people think that there's a such thing as free will? Is there really free will? Is there really free will? This is the real question, isn't it? Because all of us think we have free will to do right and wrong and everything in between, right? Well, what if we actually don't have free will? What if the free will that we have is all just an illusion? If you want to know the truth, free will is an illusion because it's all oneself. All oneself living all these lives. It's all oneself doing all the right and the wrong. All oneself being the good guy and the bad guy and everything in between. All oneself being the animals and the plants and the minerals and the water. The empty space is part of this same oneself. So is there really free will if it's all oneself with one goal? If you really want to know the real goal of all of this and why all this is happening, it's because God is on a journey of self-exploration. Did you know that? Did you know that this is all just God dreaming, trying to find out who it is? This whole thing is all about God on a journey of self-exploration. Nothing more. There's not some goal in the end, some glorious finish line that we all cross. If you really want to know the truth, everything has a terrible end. Terrible. Every star is going to burn out, every planet is going to die, and everything gets sucked back into a black hole in the end. But there's a lot of time before then. So, what is the whole point then? What is this whole free will thing if it's all oneself on a journey of self-exploration? This is God trying to find out who it is in this idea of duality, this idea of right and wrong, this idea of dark and light. This is God trying to find out who it is in this particular idea of reality. And so the free will doesn't really exist. You can never be a bad guy forever because it's this one self that wants to bring itself all together into wholeness at some point after it has scattered itself into all these experiences. God has basically divided itself down into millions and millions and millions and billions and billions of little pieces. And by doing that, God's self has created a situation where it can bump up against itself and try to explore who it is in any given situation. If I was a bad guy, what would be my dysfunction? How did I get that way? If I was a good guy, what would be my healing? What got me that way? These are the questions that God has in its mind. Who am I in any given situation? And so, there isn't really free will. This is an illusion. This is an idea. Everybody thinks we have free will. But the question, is there really free will in this reality? The answer is no. Because every piece of God goes back to source sooner or later. Even the murderer's path leads to God, believe it or not. Even the really baddest of the baddest guys, sooner or later they go back to source, go back to God's self, because they're part of this one self. They're part of this self that is growing and collecting all these experiences and collecting this idea of who it is. And so even the good guys all go back to the same source. It's all the same source. All the animals go back to the same source. All the plants, all the consciousness that's in the plants, and the minerals and the water and the empty space, all goes back to this one self. One self. Really get this. It's all one self. There is no separation. So stop thinking of us and them and me and he and she and they and I'm the good guy and they're the bad guy, or I'm the bad guy and they're the good guy. You stop thinking this way. It's all the same one. And every single one of us is an individual version of God's self, fumbling its way toward ecstasy, trying to find out who it is. It's easy to understand. It actually really is easy to understand. And when you start looking at life in this way, everything changes. Everything changes. Your whole perspective about the world and all the people in it and all the craziness that's going on in this world, it's different now. You are no longer a suffering human. You are now a eternal consciousness seeing itself working itself out, seeing itself growing, seeing itself learning. That person does something bad. This is me learning about who I am, learning what to do with power and what not to do with power, learning about what the cause and the effect is in this reality of this or that, of this action or that action. What happens in this idea I have about duality? See how it works? It's a much different way to think about this reality. It's a radical change in perspective about what's going on in this world, what's going on with all the people, what's going on in you. It's a radical change in perspective. I dare you to change your perspective, because you won't be thinking like a human anymore. You won't be a suffering human, struggling, trying to find your way toward ecstasy, your way to a better job, your way to a better house, a better relationship, a better friendship. You won't be the struggling human anymore. You'll be the creator God being, knowing that it's dreaming, knowing that it's learning about who it is through all of these trials and tribulations, through all of these challenges. So wouldn't you rather look at life that way? You have much more empowerment if you look at life from this perspective. Much more. Because then you see this reality as a movable and changeable liquid reality. This is an astral world, in case you didn't know. If you don't believe me, listen to science. 1% matter, 99% empty space. Just grok that for a moment. This is an astral world. It's not really as solid as it seems. And they all seem really solid when you're in them and you have a vehicle for working within these realities, for living in this reality, for dreaming in this dimension. Every single one of them seems solid to those who live in those dimensions and have agreed to go into those dimensions and be a being in that dimension, learning, growing with all of the parameters that have been set up and the challenges that have been set up. And so if you don't think it's all oneself, look deep in your heart and really grok who you are. Understand who you are. You are God learning who it is. And so is everyone else. Just really in your meditations, see if this is true. And you're going to know in the wisdom of your heart that it is true. And that this isn't just a bunch of New Age woo-woo, right? Look at the animals as part of your own self. Look at the plants as part of your own self. Look at the minerals as part of your own self. See if you can explore the consciousness of each of these things and see what it's experiencing, and see how the consciousness that emerges from these beings are actually consciousness experiencing itself in a different form than you. And then if you really want to graduate, see each person as the same consciousness as you. Even the bad guys. Even the dark spirits. They're just parts of God, trying to find out who it is, trying to explore this idea of good and bad, and dark and light, duality. It's all just an idea. What if there was a such thing as dark and light? What if there was a such thing as good and bad? What if there were people who are evolved and people who are not evolved? What if? And And so the dream begins, the dream happens, and in that space, God's self finds out who it is just a little more through you and through every other person. And if you don't think that God is learning a lot, just look around. Look at how much you've learned in one lifetime about who you are, how to be in this reality, how to be in the dark and light, how duality works, what the cause and effect of what you do is, what you think and how it manifests, what you feel and how that manifests, what you do and how the biomachinery of this reality reacts to you. It reacts to what you do and say and think and feel. If you don't think God's learning a lot, just look at your own self and times that by 7 billion people, I think, are on the planet now about. And then times it by how many animals there are on the planet, times it by how many plants there are on the planet, times it by however many rocks are on this planet and different minerals, times it by every molecule of water, times it by every molecule of air, times it by all the consciousness that's in the empty space. And that's just this planet alone. This reality alone. This reality alone. This reality. Think about this entire universe, the dimensions in this universe, which are much bigger than the universe appears to the physical eye. Imagine how much this God's self, and in all the different various ways this God's self is exploring itself. And so if you really want to know the truth, there is no such thing as free will. All returns to source sooner or later. All of it. And all of it becomes aware of itself as this God being, this sea of consciousness, this vastness of awareness. So all becomes aware of that sooner or later. Sometimes later for some, sometimes sooner for others. Honor this idea of free will, this paradigm where this idea of free will is being explored, whether to do the right thing or whether to do the wrong thing. This idea. But know the fact that really it is all oneself, and oneself has one goal, and that is to grow and know who it is and learn who it is. And that is the will of this being that you are part of. So welcome to knowing the truth about free will. There is no such thing as free will, really. At the human level there is. At the eternal self-consciousness there is no such thing as free will. There is this perfection that's at the center of it all, this beingness at the center of it all, and it's exploring the idea of free will. But the free will, really, it's actually just will, the divine will, to explore who it is. Om Shanti.